Not yet. Now we're live. What's going on, everybody? Can there be more than one alpha on a football team? Time will tell. This is the Fantasy First Rounders. Welcome in.
It's 5:30 a.m. Let's be the kid.
Welcome into the Fantasy First Rounders. I'm your host, Chris Pinto at Aggie Kappa Sig. With me, as always, are my cohorts in crime, Billy, Ryan, Tom. To answer the question I asked earlier, can there be more than one alpha? Correct, because there's one alpha, then there's your double alpha, man candy. You know what I'm saying? AJ Brown, Julio Brown. We'll talk about them here in a little bit. Tom, Ryan, Billy, how are you doing? Tom, I know I haven't heard from you in a while. Let's get you up here front and center, baby. What's going on with you, Tom? How you doing tonight?
Hey, man, I can't complain. It's summer. It's finally hitting. We're getting close to football season. We got, news coming out that's, I don't know, the season's starting to pick up, and I'm ready for it.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it as well. Billy in the spaceship. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, I'm really excited for OTAs and all the stuff that's about to start kicking off. I love the preliminary coach speak, trying to decipher that stuff as I prep for these redraft leagues in August here.
For sure. Sorry, guys. I just got to share all these things. My man Ryan in Bandera, Texas. What's going on, cowboy?
Not much, man. Super busy week. Also, today I saw two more people send in stuff for the St. Jude Bowl. So we're continuing to fill the divisions. I'm really excited about that. Can't wait to talk wide receivers and the wide receiver one.
Yeah, we'll talk about that here very, very shortly. The wide receiver one. Yeah, okay, guys. Well, we are here for the wide receiver catalyst, guys. 75 wide receivers that we're going to talk about for redraft 2021, our consensus rankings. We went through this past week prior to that, obviously, but getting them in consensus and seeing where they all fall. We have a couple surprises here and there. Obviously, being a first rounder, you always got to be prepared with Tom and Ryan and Billy with the latest knowledge and with the latest stats. So we'll get right into it, right? Let me go ahead and share this screen. Let me put us all over here like this, guys. So we're going to talk 75 different wide receivers in rankings, where they all fall, where they all stand. And we're going to highlight some of the major ones that we like coming up for this redraft season. Obviously, with the St. Jude Bowl second year coming up, there is no imitation, guys. Don't forget, if it's not a fantasy first rounder email, don't even worry about it. But more than not, we've already talked to you, so let's just rock and roll with that. So let's go in, guys, to our consensus. Number one wide receiver in, well, where's it at? There we go. AJ Brown, guys, obviously, yes, let's make the board big. You can see AJ Brown takes our number one wide receiver for consensus 2021 wide receivers for redraft. Going down the board, we have Devontae Adams at 2, Tyreek Hill at 3, Stephon Diggs from Buffalo, guys, hitting at 4, DK Metcalf. We'll talk about him. Obviously, you can see the asterisks next to some of the guys' names. Those will be the fellas that we will be talking about tonight. My man, Nuke Hopkins, down in Arizona. Justin Jefferson, the shade for Offensive Rookie of the Year last year. We'll talk about that. Calvin Ridley, Michael Thomas, Amari Cooper rounds out our top 10, and barely missing is Allen Robinson, the second in Chicago, and Scary Terry F1 McLaurin. Guys, any comments, concerns, questions, anything you want to highlight about this list?
I will say one thing. My projections were not done with Julio accounted for. So I think that after I update that, we will likely be looking at Calvin Ridley being in that higher ranking. I suspect he moves up. I have him at 14 right now, and that's not where he's going to be.
Okay, Ryan. We'll talk about that. That's fair. Billy, anything that sticks out to you in our consensus top 12?
No, just really excited to talk about some of these guys. Ryan with the man crush on AJB. I think he worships AJB the same way AJB worships Julio. So this will be a really fun way to kick off the show. But Calvin, really for me, I think wide receiver 12, pretty comfortable right there. I think that's probably where he might move up a little bit, just target share wise, but pretty comfortable with where I had him, even with Julio moving on to Tennessee.
Tom, I'm not going to get to you about AJB because I want you to kick off AJB, our consensus number 1 wide receiver right here. As you can see, everybody, AJB's got the stats. He's got the pedigree. Obviously, he went to the right division in college, playing against the best in the league out there. Obviously, an athlete at the 4.49. You can see the fantasy points over there that we kind of just made for you to kind of look at. We want to give you the extra knowledge and, something that you can take and chew on. Maybe do a little critical thinking of your own. You can see over here in the top corner where we have our rankings, obviously on the lowest. Tom and Ryan are the highest. So, Tom, kick it off about AJB. Why is he your number 1? Why is he our number 1?
Yeah, I mean, look at it. These stats are absolutely insane. Obviously, for a guy this young to be putting up 1,000 yards when he's not the focus of the team, and passing in general is not the focus of the team. You have arguably the best running back in the league right now, and Derrick Henry there dominating their offense. So bringing in Julio Jones, I think some people are probably going to look at that and consider it as something that's going to bring him down. I think it actually only improves A.J. Brown's situation. Obviously, Corey Davis, not a bad wide receiver too for them last year. But here's the thing. If you're on defense, who are you going to double team, A.J. Brown or Julio Jones? You can't double team both on every play, especially when you have a guy like Derrick Henry in the backfield. So I think that the whole Julio can't score in the red zone thing probably still holds true. I think that that's a Julio problem. I don't think that it impacts A.J. Brown in any negative ways. Like I said, if anything, it really just bumps him up higher, having him alongside him.
Okay, that's fair. When you look at A.J. Brown, obviously, I always joke about his target share and things like that with you guys because y'all are AJB lovers and truthers. When I look at this more deeply, right? Obviously, over at XTB, working on some IDP things, I look at the defensive side of the ball, right? And Ryan, you and Billy kind of answer on this, and then have your touches on AJB. But Ryan, I know you're just maybe Ryan, you close it out. Billy, you kind of come in next. But AJB goes up against obviously the Houston Texans, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and your Colts, Billy. Against this division, AJ Brown has caught 27 balls for 440 yards and 5 TDs. Obviously, the Texans were not the best. My Houston Texans secondary is 27 against the wide receiver position, allowing 25.66 points and 38 red zone targets. So AJB snagging at least 7 of those if you got the 5 touchdowns, right? The Jaguars a little bit better at 11, but the Colts, Billy, at 19, allowing 22.65 points and 31 red zone targets. AJ Brown, Julio Jones in this offense, he just gets to feast in this division, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 2 really tough matchups are going to be obviously their games against the Colts, but they're still able to score. Those still end up being high-scoring games just because of kind of the rivalry and the way those games shaped out to be. So not really downers for me necessarily, and I really feel like A.J. Brown's kind of hit that upper echelon of guys that are actually matchup-proof. And I tell you what, if you're still playing in a standard scoring league, a non-PPR league, you want all the Titans. A.J. Brown has back-to-back seasons being top 10 in standard scoring. Obviously, Derrick Henry, the king of standard scoring, as no PPR, brings him way up there. But wide receiver 12 in PPR last season, and he missed 2 games. He had 4 100-yard games, and 2 were over 150. So A.J. Brown really taking that step, showing that he's explosive. Only had fewer than 4 receptions 1 time last season in his second year, and I don't see Julio hurting him, to be honest. Todd Downing stepping up to be the new OC has much more of a passing game influence than Arthur Smith had. Todd Downing was in Detroit with Stafford, was young with his 5,000-yard seasons in the next 2 seasons, which were all 3 of Stafford's career years. So they threw the ball a lot up there, obviously. And then he was the OC in Oakland with Del Rio, and Derek Carr had 513 attempts. They threw the ball 57% of the time. So I really expect the Titans to be a little less run-heavy with the new offensive coordinator. So Corey Davis, Johnny Smith, Adam Humphries are all gone. That's 3 of their top 5 target leaders 192 targets available. So really, we could see Julio still get the targets in bunches that we're accustomed to, and AJB also sees an increase in targets as well. So no reason for me to not believe A.J. Brown isn't just going to get more easy opportunities with Julio on the other side of the field.
Obviously takes the pressure off of AJB. Ryan, your guy, take it, your floor.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I know this sounds silly, but you can just see it when he plays football. This guy is an animal. He's averaging 17.4 yards per catch for his career, 19 touchdowns in 30 games. That's the kind of numbers that I want to see. He turns 24 this year, so we're not seeing the best AJB yet. And from what I've seen, I already think he's the best receiver in the league. Obviously, Tyreek has a unique skill set, but for the total package, I think this guy is that. Combine that with the fact that you have Derrick Henry, who's just, honestly, y'all have talked about it. He's going to take so much pressure off of the passing game. Adding Julio, like you said, is only a good thing in my opinion. A.J. Brown does not need to score from the red zone. He can score from deep. He can score from anywhere. I do suspect that they're going to be trying to get him the ball more, perhaps in the run game, just because he's such an explosive athlete with the ball in his hands. Like he's legitimately the most dangerous guy with the ball in his hands in the league, in my opinion. So when you combine that with the stats that you see right here, I mean, we can go stats all day. He improved in quite a few different ways last year, in ways that I wanted to see him improve. Missing the 2 games obviously hurt his overall numbers, but he scored 11 touchdowns. Like 11. That is a lot, guys. And legitimately, he's not even close to as good as he's going to be. He's 24. The guy is amazing. He's going to be my wide receiver 1 for the reasonable next, maybe 8 years? Well, okay, 8 years might be long, but 5 for sure. Like
4.
I don't think
he's saying 3-4 confidently, no problem, and then after that, it's
3-4,
okay.
solid.
Yeah, he's just.
Justin Jefferson or somebody like that could come up and compete at that point, depending on what their team looks like.
And just keep something in mind too. The workload that Derrick Henry takes is insane. If he ever did go down, they would have to rely very heavily on the passing game, and that would be something that, boy, Julio and AJB would benefit from as much as they benefit from the presence of Henry and what that does to the defense. I think Tannehill's quite an accurate quarterback. I think most of us would agree on that. Those 2 athletes, good luck. You can try to double both of them. I'm not sure it would matter.
And A.J. Brown, he actually has some growth that he could be done in the catch percentage part of his game. He 61 to 66%. That's still relatively low for a guy with his talent. So even if his workload doesn't get a whole lot bigger, I expect him to perform a whole lot better just as he grows and more of a route tree, and obviously just the camaraderie with Tannehill, another year under center together.
This guy is known for being the film junkie, the guy that puts in all the work. DK Metcalf was the workout guy, and A.J. Brown was the football guy. That's when they're interviewed, that's what they talk about. This guy is like a student. He is going to be watching film. He's going to be doing drills. Him and DK, that is a crazy tandem of college receivers, by the way. I know we've commented on that before, but that's unbelievable, right? Is that the best tandem of all time for college receivers?
You have to go look at Alabama real quick, but I believe A.J. Brown, we'll look here in a second, but A.J. Brown went higher than DK Metcalf in that 2019 draft.
As he should have. Yes, as he should have.
Well, let's keep it moving, guys, to our next guy. Our consensus number 3, Tyreek Hill. Let's look at his stats real quick, guys. We'll go down him real fast. 5'10", 185, the cheetah, 4.34 speed. Look at those 17 total touchdowns with second in the league, dominating 33.1%, 6, and he goes third for fantasy points per route and by target. Our consensus number 3, I have him at 2. Tom has him at 6. Ryan has it 4. Billy has Tyreek the Freak Cheetah at 1. So, Billy, you'll close us out. Tom, since you are the lowest on him, obviously we know that these guys in the top 6, top 7 all have a chance to be the number 1 wide receiver out there. It just kind of depends on how things fall, injuries, things like that. But, Tom, why don't you take us through why you were, I guess, lowest on him compared to all of us?
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, I'm not saying that number 6 is a bad thing in this class, right? It's more talking to the guys that I have above him and their ability than it is negatively about Tyreek Hill. One of the things that I do look at is I do see this being a year that we could see Mecole Hardman kind of come out of a shell and really make a difference on this team. Could Demarcus Robinson or Byron Pringle maybe make a difference at receiver? the best thing that is going for him, obviously, not that he was a massive difference maker and wasn't taking a huge amount of targets, but Sammy Watkins leaving the Chiefs opens up a little bit of a little bit of opportunity for all of these guys. So, I mean, Tyreek Hill, year in, year out, going to be a pretty impressive player. And again, it's more just the guys that I have above him, I think, are that good. He's also an incredible athlete. One thing looking at him, in my head, I'm like, this is a guy that should get hurt all the time based on his size. I will say he's been fairly reliable. Had a shoulder injury in 19 and a slight hamstring tweak at the end of last year. But aside from that, really been on the field quite a bit. So not a huge concern looking forward.
I agree with that. I mean, his durability shouldn't be a question at all. Ryan, I posed this question to you, obviously, like I did Billy earlier, and then Tom, you'll have to come with it with DK. But in this division, it's such a big shootout, right? It's a little, literally an arms race, right, throughout the division. Tyreek Hill goes up against the Broncos, the Raiders, and the Chargers. Derwin James returns this year. Casey Hayward as well. Rashawn Jenkins, the number 13 defense against the wide receiver position, only allowing 28 red zone targets. Tyreek obviously doesn't need to be in the red zone. He can stretch the length of the field. This Raiders defense obviously is not very good, allowing 24 points, and then 49 red zone targets. A lot, right? So, Ryan, Tyreek Hill is your number 4 wide receiver. This division, where he is essentially eating it up at close to 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, how does he fit for you, obviously not being your number 1, 2, or 3?
So, to be honest, he was outside of number 3 by 0.3 points, Stephon Diggs, and that has more to do with Josh Allen than anything. That being said, I think Mahomes is going to kind of go on a tear. They lost in the Super Bowl. I know Pinto, that narrative, you can see that happening, right, man? Mahomes could set the league on fire next year, and the biggest beneficiary of that will continue to be Tyreek, along with Kelsey. But when you just look at the gaudy numbers, the only thing that concerns me, honestly, is his catch rate has declined slightly as he's moved on throughout his career. At least has had a downward trajectory. He started out in his rookie season with a 73.5. Now, last year, a 64.4. That's a little things for a guy who can literally score from anywhere on the field. And his touchdown, 15 touchdowns, guys, from a receiver. That doesn't happen very often. He has a 12 touchdown season as well. He's been over 1,000 yards 3 of the last 4 years. And again, he's durable. He's not skinny. He's not like Devontae Smith, guys. He's pretty thick in the legs. He's been durable. 4 feels low for me. I didn't expect it, but he's just below Diggs, and that's what brings him in at 4. I could see him being 1 so easy. I think out of any of the other guys, his one upside really is so it's there in that offense.
Yeah, Ryan, you definitely touched on it, and you knew what I was going to talk about. Sorry, guys. You know what's going to be about. It's about that little view on Narrative Street. Obviously, I called it last year. I told you guys that Brady was going to win, and I told you what was going to happen this year. Brady's going to retire after this year, and Mahomes will see him again in the Super Bowl. But this year, Mahomes will win. The offensive line, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, will do better, obviously, this season. But like last year, I guess I'm planting the flag early. Like I did last year. Let's go 2 for 2 on the fantasy first rounders. Narrative Street always wins. Billy, you're number 1 wide receiver in the 2021 season. Give us all the numbers, baby. Let's go, Dragon.
Well, hey, just to be honest with you, Tyreek Hill, this guy is like you guys have all said, he's the scariest deep threat, the number 1 option in the scariest offense with the scariest quarterback we've maybe ever seen. I mean, what's not to like? Just coming into last year, 1,276 yards on 87 receptions, 87 catches 2 out of the last 3 years. And like Ryan said, that catch percentage could be a little bit better, but his yards per target's been actually kind of low at 9.7 or 9.5. This is a guy that's had a couple seasons over 15 yards per reception, and his monster year at 17. But he's just one of those guys that him and Mahomes could at any point just ignite and have one of those incredible magical runs. He's 27 years old, kind of really coming into his prime, I think, both as still having that speed and being developed as a wide receiver. And with Sammy Watkins gone, there's 55 more targets in that offense. And that offensive line. These guys are loaded up. And I feel like that's going to help Tyreek Hill get behind the defense a little bit more without him having to do as much underneath stuff as they find that number 2 wide receiver. I think Tyreek Hill is going to be turning it up deep over and over all year long.
Tom, in your words, absolutely agree with that, Billy. That's why I have him at number 2. We'll keep it moving, keep it light, keep it fresh, because next week, well, in 2 weeks, we've got battles. But now we are coming into our consensus number 5 wide receiver, DK Metcalf. Check him out, everybody. Obviously, you've seen the metrics, you've seen the videos, you've seen him race against world-class athletes. He has world-class speed at 4.33 and the freak human body that he's got at 6'3", 228 out of Ole Miss, the SEC, nonetheless. AJ Brown's teammate going at the 2.32, last in the second round, versus AJ Brown going 2.19, as Ryan stated, as they should. You can see that he has 10 total touchdowns. We all feel like that's going to go up this year, 7th in the league last year. I've got him at number 3. Tom has him at number 4. Ryan's at 5. Billy's also at 4. Ryan, you being the lowest, you kick us off first. DK Metcalf, this was your guy, man. You had him. He was your AJB a year ago, correct?
Well, no, AJB's always been my AJB. But DK, so DK at 5, I have him at 331.3 PPR points. Next up, Tyreek, I have 343. So he's just outside of this extremely elite. I still call him elite, but he's just on that fringe. And some of that has to do with the fact that Lockett kind of gets some of the volume. I look at it a lot of the ways like Julio and Ridley, they kind of hurt each other's volume just a bit. And I think he's a bit volume dependent. That being said, he has improved in in every category. He had a better catch percentage last year, more yards per reception. This guy has had back-to-back 15-plus yards per reception seasons. He had 7 and 10 touchdowns. That feels anomalous because he really should be a threat to score from almost everywhere. We've seen the speed. If they can get him the ball in space more, maybe if Seattle can establish the run effectively, DK can get some of those play action looks and take him home, because I think this guy has a pretty high touchdown upside. That being said, again, it's just hard to put him over some of these guys in these offenses that, in my opinion, either they're a little more special receivers, like a Tyreek has that crazy quick speed, or AJB being AJB. And then Diggs just has, in my opinion, the best quarterback. So those guys are the only ones I have over DK. I feel like, yeah, I'm low, but I'm still really high on him. I'm trying to get DK shares. Muted.
Number 1 of the night, everybody. So, like I was saying, any one of these guys in the top 5, 6, could be in the top. Could be our number 1 guy, right? So, Tom, you're up next. What's the fire on this? DK, obviously, huge possibility this year, right?
Yeah, I mean, like we said, everybody in the top 6, 7, 8 positions here could be a wide receiver number 1 for the season. Just kind of depend on where things fall. I think the biggest thing to me that keeps DK right around that 3 or 4 position is kind of the guys around him, right? So obviously Russell Wilson, incredible. Tyler Lockett on the other side, another great receiver. The issue is going to be number 1, Dwayne Eskridge, rookie that's brought in, probably going to play as the number 3. And then there's a guy that I really like that's, I think, going to end up being their wide receiver 4, Tamorrion Terry, somebody that a lot of people aren't necessarily thinking of, this year. I think they think of him as a developmental player. I don't think they're going to steal a ton of touches from Lockett and DK here, but it could be enough that it keeps him out of that wide receiver 1 spot by just a few points. Beyond that, I mean, DK is probably one of the best receivers in the game right now, especially these young guys that are 25 and under probably.
Tamorrion Terry reference. Yes, Tom, I agree. He's a beast. I love Tamorrion Terry as well. I love that.
Number 2 for Crepinto.
I got so
2
quickly,
back
too.
back to back.
We talked about him recently, didn't we? Or y'all talked to him. Maybe it was the week that I was out.
Yeah, I mean, I was high. I was very high on Terry coming into the draft. I was kind of surprised he didn't get drafted, but I look at that situation and he could easily take that wide receiver 3 position with that talent.
Absolutely.
Him and
Billy.
Eskridge, they're going to be a nasty duo there.
Yeah, see, I like Eskridge too, but I think Terry has the higher upside.
I agree.
like the higher ceiling, excuse me. Like he could be better if they could fully realize each other's potentials. I would take Terry. That's as close to Randy Moss as I've seen in a long time in a highlight. Like when I was watching his touchdown highlights, woo. I mean, he was inconsistent and he had some attitude issues, but man, over under 5, Scott, I'll go under. He's gonna be on it now. He did back-to-back ones.
Like 3 or 4 by the end of the show.
The pace is real high right now.
we're going at a fast pace. Billy, what do you have on DK?
So yeah, I have him at number 4, which seems kind of low, but I have him behind guys like Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams, who at number 1 and number 2, I kind of feel like there is still a bit of a gap between them and AJ Brown for me. Like Ryan and Tom alluded to, these are offenses that just throw the ball a lot more than say Seattle and Tennessee. So situation kind of dictates it a little bit, and also like Ryan said, there is another guy to eat in that offense on the other side of the field. But one positive, the guys that you guys have talked about, Tamorrion Terry and Dwayne Eskridge, I feel like makes me think that the Seahawks are gearing up to throw the ball more this season, which can only be good for DK Metcalf. If you look at his numbers and kind of what he does, on a stat sheet, it will really remind you of a Tyreek Hill. I just feel like DK's he's not a complete receiver, not as in there's anything missing in his game. It's just what he does in Seattle. It's a lot of the same stuff. It's trying to get deep. A lot of balls, I just feel reception-wise, that 80, 85 range is probably as high as he's going to get, where some of these other guys might see in the more 100, 110 range even. So that caps him a little bit in PPR, just the echelon just behind these really super elite guys. He's young too, guys. 3 or 4 years from now, he might be one by a long shot.
Shout out to everybody in the chat tuning in. John, June, Scott Davis, Derek from the good old boys. Man, Derek, you're talking about DK Metcalf running down a Cardinals DB. Maybe he won't be able to do that this year. Tay Gowan, brother of the Kappa Sigma fraternity, number 32, rocks it with the Arizona Cardinals this year. That DB secondary is pretty good, though. Patrick Peterson, Drake Kirkpatrick, Jalen Thompson, Chris Banjo, Buda Baker, my number 1 DB for IDP purposes. And then obviously Tay Gowan, like you mentioned, or I mentioned earlier, brother of Kappa Sigma fraternity, number 16 overall. That's going to go higher or lower golf scores. 37 red zone targets, so that's not terrible compared to the rest of the league. But Derek, come on, man. We got to get behind the Cardinals. They got too much of a narrative street for us. We'll talk about that later. Derek and I actually have a little spoiler. I'll tease that later, coming out tomorrow on Sports Me. We'll talk about that later, though. Man, I guess it's me on DK. Now I got to talk about y'all pretty much covered everything about DK Metcalf for me. I don't really need to talk about him too very much. Ryan?
There was one thing. Patrick Peterson is playing for the Vikings this year.
Oh, that is correct.
I totally forgot, and then I was like, oh, wait a minute.
2020 stats over here for the number 16 defense against the wide receiver position. Patrick Peterson was on the team.
Gotcha, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure how good he is anymore, honestly.
Well, a guy that is very good that's on the Cardinals,
Yeah.
Nuke Hopkins. The disrespect stops tonight. Will stop in 2 weeks when we talk about Nuke on the. You know what? No. Here, no, can't do it. No, hold on. The disrespect for Nuke Hopkins stops tonight, guys. The 6'1" Clemson man, 214 pounds, a 4.5 40. He's my number 1 wide receiver. Kyler Murray's throwing the ball. You know how much I love Kyler Murray. I promised you guys, I promised myself I wasn't going to do it, but you know what? I've got the power to do it. A live look from Narrative Street right now. I'm cutting it, calling it right now. You got Cliff Kingsbury, right, out of Texas. Coach at A&M, right? Quarterbacks coach for Johnny Manziel. Then you got Kyler Murray out of Texas. Goes to A&M, right? Blah, 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 blah. Now, number 1 overall pick, Cliff Kingsbury gets the son of Texas, right? What are you going to get the son of Texas? Let's go get a receiver out of Texas, right? The Houston Texans' number 1 wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, comes to Arizona. Guys, he only scored 6 touchdowns last year. That goes up. That goes up a lot. When you look at DeAndre Hopkins versus the division that he's going against, obviously it's pretty good against the defenses, right? The Rams, the 49ers, the Seahawks are no slouches. Rams number 1 against the wide receivers, 49ers number 10, Seahawks number 20. So not too good, but giving up 39 red zone targets, right? And then the 49ers 42. DeAndre Hopkins under the second year will ascend with Kyler Murray. Only 440 yards, 49 catches, and 2 touchdowns against this division, guys. That goes up this year with DeAndre Hopkins. Man, I'm done. I'm done with DeAndre. I'm saving it for battles. Tom, you're up.
So I just don't think it increases dramatically. That's it. I think 1,400 yards, 6 touchdowns. He might get an extra touchdown or 2, but I don't think it's going to be enough to bump him over, again, the guys that are in this top 6, A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson. I think it's going to be tough to bump over him. But again, we're talking about the same guys that any of them could end up being wide receiver 1. We all know DeAndre is a monster. It's not like he has anybody too crazy that's going to steal targets from him down here. AJ Green's probably not going to do it. Andy Isabella is not going to do it. Christian Kirk is probably your best option. And of course, Rondale Moore, who we've talked about him a few times on the show now. I don't know if we'll see him in more of a running back role, a receiver role, kind of a mixture of it. It's not going to be wide receiver 1 for them by any means. So like I said, I think that around that wide receiver 4 is where he might end up. Currently I have him at 7, but again, it's another guy that's just based on who else we're looking at here in this top 7.
Fair right now. Tom, I was almost on mute. I almost started talking when I was on mute, but I wasn't. So I let the awkward silence go. So Ryan, DeAndre.
Right. Tom, actually, we have almost the exact same guys ahead of him. I have Michael Thomas rather than Justin Jefferson, but I feel the same way. Again, I have him getting over 300 points in my projections. He's going to get a massive target share. He has been increasing his catch percentage, and he had his career best with Kyler last year in this offense. You got to think that 6 touchdowns was anomalous. I don't suspect that happens again this year, which would push him higher. I believe, actually, I have him for how many? 9 touchdowns this year, which would be a lot better season, 1,438 yards as well. So as you can see, I'm expecting a big year from him. I am targeting him still, but there's just some other guys that I have a tiny bit higher. I get why Pinto, for the same reason I really love Diggs, you love Nuke, because you think it's the best quarterback and you want the best quarterback's receiver. So I do really like Nuke this year, honestly, but the guys ahead of him I have all having double-digit touchdowns, and I have Nuke at 9, and that kind of makes the difference. But you look at what you're seeing here is a wide receiver 1 potential still. We're still in that range. Like, even though I have him at 7, I still can see it happen, especially if what you're saying with Kyler Murray happens. But just outside that, yeah, he's in a great situation, great quarter. He's always had a great quarterback, and he's always finished high. It's just the amount of talent at this. God, wide receiver, don't you dare take receiver early. There's so many.
DeAndre Hopkins always had a good quarterback.
Yeah, he's had a good quarterback in the last 2.
Billy, don't even. Billy, you get him. Brian, you're done.
Let me rephrase. Last two quarterbacks were great.
Yeah, I love me some Nuke Hopkins. You couldn't be happier for him to leave Houston with Deshaun Watson and end up in Arizona with Kyler Murray. I mean, just an incredible situation, and maybe even a better tooled offense around him, so he doesn't have to do everything. I do expect DeAndre Hopkins to have that 110, 120 catch range and upwards of 1,500 yards, but I do expect him to jump into that double-digit touchdown range. I have him at 5. I know that feels low, but I think on the other side of the field, A.J. Green brings something to the table with something to prove and could cut into a little bit of DeAndre, but I do think he gets free a little bit more for touchdowns, a little bit longer plays, that kind of thing. Having somebody on the other side of the field to scare a defense a little bit. Really excited for the Cardinals offense in every facet leading into 2021. But, man, DeAndre, this is kind of the last year of his prime, and I think he's got something to prove. Cardinals are looking to be a really good team this year, and I think DeAndre is going to be a very big part of it, obviously.
Absolutely love it. If we don't have any, it is going excellent. If no one has any other points, we'll keep on moving, keep the train rolling. Right, we got 75 guys to talk about. The man, the myth, the legend, Justin Jefferson, new man for the Minnesota Vikings, as Truth Hurts would say, right? Lizzo. I think that's what the kids are singing. I don't know. It's, I just know it in Kids Bop, right? Kids Bop version, whatever, right? I'll stop talking. We'll talk about Justin Jefferson. My bad. But 61202 out of LSU, man. We're talking about a couple of these SEC teams. I don't know how many SEC teams we're talking about. Maybe we'll see at the end of it. But the 4.4340. We get back to Justin Jefferson, right? See the percentiles over there. Super good. Offensive Rookie of the Year snubbed almost 9 votes to Herb God's 41, I believe. But he had an outstanding year, breaking all sorts of records. You can see he falls in consensus number 7 for us. Billy and I are at 7. Tom, the highest on Justin Jefferson, which I love it. I love it. I'm here for it because Kirk Cousins is one of my top quarterbacks for Scott Fishbowl. So, Tom, I'm going to be writing notes on this one. Ryan, obviously, when we say low, these first tier guys that we're talking about obviously all have the same potential, and we'll reiterate that until we get to the top 24. But obviously, Ryan, I kind of snubbed you on the last one, so you take us away on the Justin Jefferson train, man. What do you got on Justin Jefferson?
No, guys, again, like you just said, what a great class of receivers we have here. The thing is, I think Thielen is going to do a bounce back. He didn't get 1,000 yards last year, and I think that maybe that's something that he's going to have a goal to do. And you have Cook, who stayed relatively healthy and is just such an animal in so many ways as a receiver as well. So I do like Jefferson a lot, but I can't take him over the other guys because I'm not sure about Minnesota. I know Cousins has been good. I just don't feel the same kind of confidence with Cousins as I would like a Tannehill, Mahomes, or a healthy Rodgers. Like all these guys have a bit of an upgrade at QB over Jefferson. Not, again, Pinto, I like that you have Cousins as your quarterback. I think that's a good quarterback. But that's where it is for me at 8. I mean, look how close we are. We're 3 spots away from each other. We all really like this guy. I just he was a rookie. There's tape on him now. Let's see if he can continue breaking out, or have we seen the best of him? And the best of him is already really good.
Ooh, you almost got me on that, but Ryan was right. I picked it up. I picked it up on that one. Billy, number 7 on him. You go, and then I'll go, and then Tom, you will finish it in that order. And it probably won't happen in that order, but right now we'll talk about it going forward that way. So, Billy, Justin Jefferson, what do you got, man?
So Justin Jefferson came into Minnesota with some pretty big shoes to fill, following Stephon Diggs and his departure to Buffalo. And he came in and he was wide receiver 6 as a rookie in PPR and had 1,400 yards, which would have been more yards than Stephon Diggs and a higher PPR finish than Stephon Diggs ever had in this offense. And Adam Thielen, who may not have had that 1,000-yard season, was still wide receiver 10. So obviously he brought a little bit to the table to help Adam Thielen just continue to work, as we've seen him several years in a row. So Justin Jefferson, a really high target guy, 125 targets last year, high catch percentage, just over 70%. A whole lot to like about this guy. 87 yards per game and 7 touchdowns. He feels like a Jarvis Landry that's just a little bit more athletic. He makes a little bit more of those big splash plays. And I think as he continues to develop, this guy's just going to be a monster. He's the real deal. Minnesota took him in the first round for a reason, and man, he exploded onto the scene. And he just kept getting better as the year went on last year. So I'm sure anybody who had Justin Jefferson, drafted him late as a rookie, probably in love with the guy and probably feel similar about him as Ryan does AJB. I mean, there's a whole lot to like here. He's a big, well-built kid coming out of LSU, and LSU wide receivers are dominating in the NFL right now. So he's just another example of that, and they're up there in Minnesota. And really, if it wasn't for Justin Jefferson, we all might be a little bit lower on Kirk Cousins. Just goes to show what he's doing in this offense. And, hey, look what Stephon Diggs did. He was pretty damn good.
Stephon Diggs was the man in that offense. Justin Jefferson gets a huge workload. When we're looking at Justin Jefferson, though, at least from the defensive side, right, this division is very good across the board. Bears, Lions, Packers, right? Scary, scary stuff. Justin Jefferson had that awesome career year last season, right? The 1,400 yards, 125 targets, 88 balls caught. But when you look at the division that he went up against, 33 balls, 488 yards, and 0 touchdowns. One, you can probably expect that to increase this year. So for me, that's why I have him at 7 and not, 9 or 10. I feel like he's going to score against this division because he's played against the division now. The Lions, what can we say about them? Obviously, their best DB, right, is what, Jaron Kearse, maybe? 40
They
red
got
zone
Okuda.
For the Lions, Okuda, boy.
Yeah, they got Okuda.
Okuda. Okay, fair enough. Jeff Okuda. Do you think that he snubs Justin Jefferson, or you go on Adam Thielen with him?
I don't know. That's a good question, actually. And to be fair, Okuda didn't play all of last year, so we don't really know what he is yet in the pros.
Ooh, my bad, Ryan. I was not paying attention.
No worries. It was just a quick mention on Okuda. I mean, he could be really special. I think we think he's going to be, but he hasn't really shown it yet. He was hurt a lot last year, so we'll see.
I want to see what Justin Jefferson's slot percentage was. Let's see. Justin Jefferson in the slot, 31.3. Was that on the board over there? I should have put that over there. But 31.3%. So does Okuda move to the slot, or does he play out wide and lock down that receiver? Tom, that's your forte.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say, right? I think pretty much this whole division is going to come down to who lines up where, or who lines up against who. Most of these teams have a very good number one cornerback. Again, Jeff Okuda, we think, is going to be very good. Beyond him, though, it's Amani Uru. I can't even say it. I'm not going to try. Corn Elder, it's not great beyond him. You look at Chicago, Desmond Trufant, not what he used to be even, but he's fine. And then Jalen Johnson, Artie Burns, nothing special. And then even moving to Green Bay, obviously, to me at least, the best cornerback in the league right now, and Jair Alexander. But then it's Kevin King, Chandon Sullivan, Josh Jackson, Eric Stokes, right? It's going to be about who lines up against who. And I think that having Thielen and Jefferson out there, you're going to see both of these guys have great games. It's just going to depend on the matchups. And I think that even throughout a game, depending on if the Vikings are smart, you could see them utilize motions to break up those coverages and split up who's covering who. So personally, I'm big on Jefferson. I think that having Thielen out there is going to really boost him up year after year. And you talked about Kirk Cousins. Billy, I think it was you that said we might not be as high on Kirk Cousins. To be honest, I'd still be high on him. This is a guy that pretty much regularly since 2015, all but 1 year, put up over 4,000 yards, and his completion percentage all but 1 year was over 67%. That's very efficient football. You guys know that's my thing. The one thing he does have is he throws around 10 to 12 interceptions a year, kind of on average, which isn't great, but it's not terrible either. He's still moving the ball downfield and playing effective football. So I think Justin Jefferson, we're going to see keep growing. Between him and Judy, I think the two of them are the best route runners out of this class. And I think that we're really going to see that as they come into their own. And like I said, they get matched up against one of these guys in the slot or something. It's not going to be pretty for a defense.
Absolutely not. I hope I'm on mute because I can't see anything right now. Tom always talks about efficient football, a team that wasn't efficient last year, the Dallas Cowboys, because they didn't have Dak Prescott. Amari Cooper comes in at our consensus number 10 wide receiver. Hopefully Dak is back this season, correct? I still don't know if I'm looking at anything correctly. Here we go. Oh, I was not on mute. Okay. Amari Cooper comes in at number 10 for us, right? So I have him at 10, Tom at 13, Billy and Ryan both at 11. I'll kind of kick it off just right here, and then we'll go to Billy right after me. Amari Cooper out of Alabama, right? 4.42 speed. You see the dominator rating, 22.4%. Last season, without Dak, 1,100 yards, right? 236 points for your fantasy teams. Amari Cooper, obviously, I can't wait to hear what Tom has to say, so we'll go to Billy first. Billy, what's your take on Amari Cooper?
I love Amari Cooper. The one thing that I dislike about Amari Cooper is that he always has those really big stinker games, kind of when you least expect it, like a 1 catch for 5 yards, 2 catch for 13 yards, kind of poop shoot of a game. Otherwise, if he had even decent afternoons, he would be right up there with the upper echelon, kind of on that, wide receiver 7 range. I have him at right there at 10, 11. I have him at 11 particularly, which is 2 spots behind CeeDee Lamb. I like CeeDee Lamb to take the growth, Amari Cooper to kind of be that second guy. I just really love the talent that CeeDee Lamb is. However, Amari Cooper last year, wide receiver 15, but 37 receptions in those first 4 games with Dak Prescott, over 80 yards in all 4 of those games. That's just an incredible jump to the year. Just shows the immense talent that he has for 1 and for 2 when Dak Prescott's on the field, this is an incredible fantasy offense. So I do expect him to take a jump to be more consistent with Dak under center all year, but I do kind of feel like there's always been something about Amari Cooper that just keeps him kind of that tier 2, not quite elite, but man, he sure has some elite fantasy games. So a really attractive option and a really attractive fantasy offense. But for me, I like CeeDee Lamb just a slight bit better, but I'm not shying away from Amari Cooper at all. I just bought him from Chris in a dynasty league where he's trying to rebuild. So excited to add him. Really like Amari. I'm higher on CeeDee. That's all.
That's fair. Ryan, is that kind of where you follow with CeeDee and Amari?
On my projections, I have Amari over CeeDee, but so that one is the toughest one for me, I think, because last season there were games where they were just looking at CeeDee Lamb. It was very odd. That being said, that wasn't Dak. So with Dak back, I think, again, you can go a little bit narrative here. He's going to want to tear up the league after his injury. Cooper, in my opinion, is still the best receiver. He's an excellent route runner, very athletic, super talented guy. What hurts him and brings him to 11 for me is all the talent around him, because Gallup is excellent, and then obviously CeeDee is a beast as well. So, and with Zeke as well, that offense, there's a lot of mouths, and I think that just takes a little too much volume from him to keep him up in that highest echelon for me. So while I do like Amari Cooper, I like he's been 70% in 2 of his last 3 years, over 70% catch rate. That's fantastic. 66.4 in the one that he wasn't. That's not bad. He's had over 100 targets, over 119 targets in the last 2 years. He should continue to be at least there, plus 17th season. So at least he'll hit that. A 17-game season, he will hit 130 again this year. And that's good enough volume. The 5 TDs was a little anomalous, but this guy hasn't been a TD guy the way I've expected him to be. And that's the other thing that kind of brings him down. But he's a supreme talent.
Fair points, fair points. Now the resident Cowboys, America's team hater, Tom, everybody.
I'm going to get into that. I'm going to keep it to the point here, right? You guys already mentioned the number of mouths to feed on that team. CeeDee, Gallup, Zeke. You can also even mention Pollard, who's really come into his own as a number 2 running back, that they've started to give him the ball a little bit more. And then the tight ends, keep in mind, Blake Jarwin and Dalton Schultz, both there this year. Last year had some injuries that were really throwing him off, other than just Dak. So a lot of mouths to feed. The other factor that I'm looking at here, right? So we talk a lot about how this is the first 17-game season. Keep in mind with that, that means that some teams will have 8 home games, some teams will have 9 home games. Cowboys are only getting 8, which is a bad thing for Amari Cooper when you look at his stats. So last year, 2020, again, of course, this is without Dak for the majority of the year, but in 8 games at home, 44 receptions for 646 yards and 3 touchdowns, averaging 14.68 yards per reception. On the road, 8 games, 48 receptions. So he's up 4 receptions, which is positive, but only 468 yards, 9.75 per catch, and only 2 touchdowns. His numbers throughout his career have always leaned heavily to the home games for him. I don't know why. And, maybe it's just kind of a little bit more aggressive for him than other guys, that he's really the one that sticks out for. But not having 9 home games doesn't help him any. So personally, I think that wide receiver 15, I don't think he'll be way off of that. I think you're looking a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2, just because of those factors.
All right. Amari Cooper rounds it out the top 10. Here we go. This is what I was talking about, guys. We're making pretty good time, right? Let's talk about now 13 through 24. Here we go. This is what Ryan and I were talking about earlier. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, 13 and 14. We'll talk about them in the battle show in 2 weeks. CeeDee Lamb falls at 15. Keenan Allen, we'll talk about him, 16. Julio Jones, we'll talk about at the new home in Tennessee. Deebo Samuel at 18, 19. Bobby Trees, my guy, we'll talk about him. Kenny Golladay falls at 20. That makes our top 20 guys now, 21 through 24, as you can see. DJ Chark Jr., T. Higgins, Adam Thielen, and DJ Moore. DJ Moore we'll talk about, a guy that I'm not too high on, but maybe my guys can convince me because I did get my first share of him in a league today. So we'll see. And he, DJ Moore, we'll talk about him. But moving forward, right, we will go on to, well, real quick, guys, does anything stick out to you in this board?
Keenan Allen should be higher, and I think that of my own ranking too. He should be so much higher with Justin.
I agree. I'm looking at it like, man, what was I doing?
Yeah, I'm
Debo Samuel.
We're going to get on that one.
Debo Samuel will be in there. It's mostly because of me, but yeah, I think that's going to be a little bit different than a lot of other people's lists. Same for, I think I'm the lowest on DJ Moore. You might have to convince me, Pinto.
We'll talk about DJ Moore, obviously, but the guy that we're all kind of low on, surprisingly, I guess, is Keenan Allen. But you know who's not low on him? Your guy over here. I've got him at number 12. Let me move up here. Let me fix my collar real quick, guys. Y'all are all low on Keenan Allen. You know how. Okay, here we go. Keenan Allen, right? My guy over here, obviously Keenan Allen. We'll talk about him and why I'm right and why I'm a trendsetter yet again, right? But Keenan Allen falls at number 16 for us. I've got him at 12, Tom at 21, Ryan and Billy 16 and 19. Keenan Allen stats over here, man. Coming out of California, the Golden Sun Bears, right? 6'2", 206, 8 total TDs, 13th in the league. His points per game, though, fantasy-wise, 6th in the league. Winning you weeks, right? 17.4. Obviously, Herb got our guy. That offensive line is stout. Herbert is the real deal, as if you watched us last season, you would have known. Billy and Ryan, Tom, all convincing the world on Herb God, and we won't talk about my guy, Ty God, but that's something else to talk about on a different day, guys. Keenan Allen's stat line, wide receiver 13 in 2020, 992 yards, falls short of 1,000 yards, right? Well, Keenan Allen this year, I believe it goes over 1,000 yards. I know, right? Look, everyone's so low on him, but we'll start with the lowest, right? The resident hater as usual, Tom, Keenan Allen hater. Why?
Hey, I'm not a hater. I'll tell you what, I actually hate my ranking for this. Like I said, I think he should be way higher, and I was shocked when I ended up with him at 21. You guys know that I'm a big Herbert guy, and obviously there's not a ton of options in Los Angeles there for him. Really looking at it, it's Keenan Allen's and Mike Williams. I don't think Josh Palmer or Tyron Johnson are going to be big factors. Jalen Guyton, KJ Hill. It's basically Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, 50 feet of crap, and then the rest of their receivers. So I think that this is a guy that'll probably move up for me into at least the mid-teens. But I think that I just year after year underrate him, and I don't pick him, and I kind of regret it at the end of the season.
I didn't know how long we were going to go, but I was going to agree with with projections and rankings.
I like Josh's comment.
I didn't leave him out. I didn't leave him out. But every single year, I leave him so low, and I never pick him up, and I regret it every single at the end of every single season.
That's fair, Billy. Telling the world about Herb God last year. Are you in the same boat as Tom? You rowing over here with us?
Yeah, man. I'm looking at 19, and I'm feeling like, man, what was I doing when I did my rankings? I feel like Joshua Cho might be kind of accurate on what I must have done, because 19 just feels really low for a guy who's either had 1,100 yards or 100 targets in each of the last 4 seasons, and only had 2 years where he was under 100 targets, and those were injury-shortened seasons. So kind of to be expected there. Herb God might be his best situation at quarterback. He is getting up there in age a little bit, but I think it's more just a testament of Keenan Allen's like he's just not that sexy. You know what I mean? He's just a really efficient guy. He runs good routes, plays good football. He doesn't make a lot of big plays, but just an underrated guy getting a ton of volume, and he's by far the number 1 option on his team. I imagine once I'm done tweaking my rankings and getting all that situated, Keenan Allen will be in that kind of like 12, 14, 15 range. Likely, but I think he easily does that this season as long as he's healthy and stays on the field.
I like that 12, 14 range. Ryan, you're getting a little closer. You're like you're on the little boat about to board the big boat. So
Yeah, I'm not sure that he's going to move any higher for me. Just for us, okay. So 8 touchdowns is his career high. He tied that last year. That's okay. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, this guy gets a target volume that you want to see. But I'm a big Mike Williams fan. I can't quit that man. I also think that Herbert's going to be so good this year that the guys that Tom was mentioning, Guyton, Josh Palmer, those guys could really do something in this offense just because of Herbert being that good. But Mike Williams, to me, is going to be the touchdown guy. I think that's going to be a big step for Herbert, is to be hitting the big Mike Williams balls. And I think he's going to lead the team in touchdown receptions. And just that caps his ceiling at 16 for me. I don't see him moving up. He's an exceptionally good route runner that should age very gracefully and remain fantasy relevant for quite some time. But I don't think his ceiling is elite anymore. I think we've exited the potential wide receiver 1. Do you see a world or any universe where Keenan Allen is the wide receiver 1 on the year? Does anybody? No, that's what I'm saying. It's not. So that's where I have him at 16. Like, even some of the guys in the 13, 14 range for me, I'm like, woo, just the right stuff happens and they could be right there. But with Keenan Allen, you know what you're getting. He's getting a safe floor and pretty great ceiling, but it's not that elite ceiling. Like, he can win you leagues, but he's not going to severely outperform his projections. He's not going to finish 1 when we have him at like 12 and 16, right? He could finish top 10. He's done it. He's consistent. Again, nice floor, but he's, again, like you said, he's not sexy.
For me at least, I don't need the sexy guy. I want these consistent guys. I want the guys that are like got the real safe floor right here when I'm looking at these guys, him, Bobby Trees. That's why they're like my guys, right? When I'm looking at Keenan Allen, though, I feel like he's going to get better right over time. And like, I don't think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 overall, but at this 12 position, I believe, he could be like the wide receiver 8, the wide receiver 6, maybe something like that. He goes up against this Raiders defense, who we've already mentioned. Scott has mentioned multiple times how this Raiders defense just is not very good, right? Trayvon Mullen, Jonathan Abram, who is yet to be healthy, right, for a full season. 42 red zone targets. Keenan Allen just eats this up, right? 283 total yards, right? 2 touchdowns. I believe that goes up, right? Like I mentioned earlier with Joshua Cho, and I just feel like it's going to go in his direction. Keeping it going up forward, we're going to kind of pick up the pace a little bit, guys. We're going to talk about, there we go. Skipped ahead just too many, right? We got this guy right here. I'll mention him real quick. I talked about it at the beginning of the show, right? Can there be 2 alphas on a team? I don't know, guys. Have you ever seen the Fast and the Furious 7? I forgot which that one is, but it's when Ramsey wakes up after she's been knocked out, right? Dom takes her down the mountain, right? He's like looking at him. Everyone's like, I got one move, but I'm gonna make it right here. It's my time, a quarter mile at a time, right? Wakes up, lost her shoe, right? And she's like, oh, I know exactly what's going on. Boom, boom, boom. Dom's the alpha, pins everyone. And she's like, you're the Joker, right? No, Julio Jones, J squared is not the Joker. He's a double alpha, baby. Wrong man candy. Know what I'm saying? So wide receiver 1, both from Alabama on the same Ryan Tannehill team with Derrick Henry, another Alabama guy. Julio, Alabama, SEC. Here we go. This division is wide open for them for the taking. Julio Jones. I'm going to stop now. Julio Jones, number 17 overall. I've got him at 15. Tom's got him at 23. Ryan's got him at 23. Billy's got him at 18. Last season, right? We're not going to talk about those numbers because they're not his true numbers. He's a freak of nature, as we all know, as my guys are going to tell you. Ryan, why don't we start with you on Julio? And, just say something about, or just don't say it's because AJB.
Just a disclaimer, I have not been able to update my receiver rankings to integrate Julio's trade. That is how long it's been since I've been able to get out my projections. So he will be higher because I do think that the touchdown thing was a Matt Ryan thing and not a Julio Jones thing. I don't see why he shouldn't set a career year in touchdowns, and I still don't think that hurts AJB. But for me, I'm going to probably have him move up a few spots. just because his increase in touchdowns. I see similar numbers coming for him that I was projecting in Atlanta. But again, for me, what this really does is it shoots Calvin Ridley up. So, I mean, what do you need to say about Julio? He's fantastic. He's one of the all-time most talented receivers, but he is not a spring chicken anymore. If you look at the decline of AJ Green last year, that was a little precipitous. Obviously, I do like AJ Green. I think he could have a solid year, but Julio, man, he's going to be 32, and that's not young in receiver standards, especially look at the guys around him on these lists that we've been talking about. Almost all of them are young. So it's a young man's game. A.J. Brown is the superior talent at this time in their career. And again, I see a good year for him. 23 is not where I will have him. Maybe I'll try to get these things updated tomorrow, but he will not be at 23 because I do see him scoring more touchdowns because it's Matt Ryan's fault, Tom, is not Julio Jones' fault. Oh,
Muted.
that's number 3. That's number 3.
We're just gonna roll with it. All right, perfect. So I will say, as far as the touchdown thing, whether or not that's Matt Ryan's fault, right? I don't know if you guys recall, but at the start of last season, we were discussing Julio Jones's touchdown numbers and how, if you look back, including last year over the last 6 seasons, right? 2015, 8 touchdowns, 16, 6, 3, and then back to 8, 6, last year, 3. If he continues that pattern this year, he's on pace for 8 touchdowns. I don't know.
Science.
I don't know how much
Science.
It's science, man. Yeah, it's stats, science. That's how it works. I don't think that really means a whole lot, to be honest. I will say, even if it was a Matt Ryan thing that was keeping him from scoring in the red zone, getting those touchdowns, I don't think it's necessarily going to get better on this team. Just looking at AJ Brown, and obviously you have a lot of touchdowns accounted for by Derrick Henry. So still a very good receiver, but I think he ends up at that wide receiver 2. 23 might be a little bit low. But again, I think you're not necessarily looking at a wide receiver 1 anymore, but a solid 4 wide receiver 2.
Yeah, I have him at 18. That's still prior to the Tennessee trade as well. I'm in the same boat as Ryan, but moving him to Tennessee, the one concern that we've always had with Julio is he kind of has the Andre Johnson syndrome where he just doesn't catch a lot of touchdowns. It's kind of held him back, but still elite numbers across the board. I mean, other than 2019, he fell 6 yards short, but every year since 2014, 1,400-plus yards receiving, but a whole lot of 6s and a couple 8s, and the 110 in 2012 in the touchdown category is just really low for a guy of his caliber. Now, I do expect that to definitely go up in Tennessee. I think he'll do a lot more catching touchdowns, as I think he'll run deep routes. I mean, he wanted a quarterback that would push the deep ball. Why go to Tennessee if you're not going to try to catch the deep ball, right? So I think that's what Tennessee will do with him, as A.J. Brown will really be the volume guy. So I think the touchdown upside for Julio is huge. I'm just not sure if he's going to really have, the volume of catches to get up there in that 1,400-yard range again. But 1,200 yards and 12 or 14 touchdowns, I think is really doable for both Julio Jones and A.J. Brown in this offense. I'm just still kind of working out in my head how I think this thing's going to go down as far as who's really the wide receiver 1, or will there really be a wide receiver 1? I'm not sure.
Double alpha, man candy, you know what I'm saying? The one thing I will add is Julio Jones is going up against the number 2 guy from the Texans, the Jaguars, and the Colts all season long. The number 2 guy going up against Julio Jones. That is absolutely scary.
Hang on.
It is.
Because the question is he going up against the number 2 guy? I think this is a lot like DK. Who are they going to match up against as the number 1? Is it Julio or is it AJB? I think it's AJB, but do you then double Julio and give your number 1 AJB in one-on-one, or do you go vice versa?
I think Julio could potentially be I think he could break Calvin Johnson's yardage record if this situation works out as well as it can.
I'm here for the Julio love. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Another guy that I'm here for is my guy, Bobby Trees, y'all. Bobby Light going to do you right. He always does you right. Bobby Trees out of USC Trojans, a 4.5 speed, 8 total touchdowns last season, 13th in the league. Fantasy points per game, 15.2. And yes, that is correct. That is with the one, the only Ryan Gosling, Jared Notebook from the Notebook. Sorry. Jared Goff, dominate rating of 26.2%, 21st in the league, guys. That is monstrous with Jared Goff throwing him the ball. I've got Robert Woods extremely high. He'll obviously be in our battles next week. Bobby Trees number 9 for me, Tom 29, Ryan at 18, Billy at 26. Wide receiver 14 last year, guys. 936. That's the narrative, right? Already, y'all don't even know. That's my area code where I grew up in Conroe, Texas, y'all. 936. So that's why I love Bobby Tree so much. 245 fantasy points last season. That really meant nothing right off the bat. But Bobby Trees, y'all. I mean, Tom, golly, you would be the resident hater on Bobby Trees. The guy's name is Bobby Trees. How do you hate that?
Am I just the resident hater on everybody? Apparently,
Yes.
Is that our new narrative?
Yes.
No, I think Bobby Trees is he's kind of like Keenan Allen to me. He's a guy that you guys use the verbiage. He's not sexy to me. He's not sexy, right? He doesn't catch my eye. So I think that's where he kind of falls down my rankings. Again, 29 might be a little aggressive for him, but I definitely wouldn't have him necessarily as high as 20 right now, at least. But maybe I could make an argument for mid-20s at least. This Rams offense, I think Cooper Kupp going to have a massive season. I think Van Jefferson could have a big year. And for all 2 games he's healthy, Deshaun Jackson could steal some of the deep threats. I'm a big Cam Akers guy. I think that he could really have a solid year running the football. And Matt Stafford really brings the offense together. I just think that Robert Woods isn't – I won't say he's not good enough, but he's not that incredibly talented to overwhelm the rest of the guys in my top 20, 25.
So
No.
Ryan, is that Ryan? Ryan, you posed the question. They're not really deep dudes.
Yeah, they're not really not comparatively from what I can tell. But I feel like you're about to stat me up.
I am real quick. Where we at? So Bobby Trees, right? For air yards, where we at? Air yards per target, 8.9. It's better than Cooper Kupp.
I don't think either one of them are particularly really deep guys.
So
They're very dangerous. They're that's maybe he does. I mean, dude, I have him second highest.
No. I'm asking who fills that role if it's not one of these 2 guys, because that's the guy to own, right?
Yeah, I don't know yet.
For 2 games.
Nope, not touching that. Not touching that.
I'm not touching it, but I'm saying that's who it's going to be for 2 games.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, I'm not saying that Robert Woods isn't a capable deep ball player, but that's just not been his MO per se in that offense with Goff at quarterback. That's not necessarily his fault.
Fair.
Like Josh was saying.
Billy, what are your thoughts on Bobby Trees? You got him at 26.
Yeah, I feel very similarly to Tom on this. He's just not a guy that excites me a whole lot. Just kind of – he's one of those guys that just does it slowly but surely. You're getting a really consistent player. Every now and again, he's good for a good boom or bust day. Kind of one of those guys who have a lot of receptions, bunch of yards, tear somebody up real good. But other than that, he's just a real normal guy to me. I don't know. I'm not too excited about him. The yards per catch is getting kind of a decrease over the last few years. It wasn't a guy that really got downfield a lot as it is. I do feel like he's a really good player. I do have a little bit of concern that I'm low on him, and it might burn me because Matthew Stafford, I do think, is a great addition to that offense. Obviously, a much better option than Jared Goff was, and maybe that changes up the game a little bit with what they want to do with Robert Woods. However, just a guy I just don't end up with. However, I have had a couple situations where in the draft he kind of lingers into company that he definitely doesn't belong with. So I have snagged him a couple places late in drafts, but not a guy that I actively target. I prefer Cooper Kupp actually with Matthew Stafford, but I am interested to see what Robert Woods can do with that upgraded quarterback. We saw him leave Buffalo and go to LA and show us that he was that guy, we all thought he had the potential to be in Buffalo. So now with the upgraded quarterback, hey, we might see the best Robert Woods yet. However, I just won't have a whole lot of him likely.
That's fair. Ryan, you've got him at 18. I'm here for it. Get me hyped up before I talk about Bobby Trees.
Yeah, a lot of that is yours to your credit. I mean, he had a 69.8% catch rate last year. You got to love that. Again, I don't think any of us are really that high on Goff, so him doing this despite his quarterback deficiencies is, I think, quite good. But the bottom line is I do think he's the guy that wins that deep ball battle with Cooper Kupp. I don't see Kupp as that blazer. I see Woods as a bit quicker and maybe getting on top of the defense. That is the guy you want to own. And I do think Woods will be that guy. I just don't think he's going to get enough with Kupp still getting as much as he's going to get to be any higher than that. I get what you're saying, Chris. And what I really do like is his consistency. He's really been a good receiver. Like, he's going to finish up there. Wide receiver 14 last year. Look, if that's your wide receiver 2, that's the second best wide receiver 2 in the league. Like, if everybody has a 1 through 12, then 13, 14. What are you complaining about here? This is a great guy. I think they are a bit too low in it. I know your love for Bobby Trees, and I think you're a tiny bit too high, but I get what you're saying because, again, the consistency, like you said, Keenan Allen, this is a lot like Keenan Allen for me, except I do think that Mike Williams is more of a threat for the touchdowns than Cooper Kupp is a threat for the catches and the yardage.
So I can't type right. Oh, there it goes. I was typing in the private chat. To be fair, and this is, I don't advise this. This is me being just a degenerate, right? A bunch of my dynasty teams, I have both Cooper Kupp and Bobby Trees on them. I think y'all are in a couple of leagues where I've got both of them in there. I like Sean McVay, and that's what I'm going to talk about right now. You know, my affinity for Sean McVay runs deep, right? Sean McVay utilizes these receivers in many different ways. Obviously, with Matt Stafford, that cannon of an arm that he's going to have, Cam Akers, like Tom mentioned, they're going to run the ball very well. And speaking about running, right, Bobby Trees does more than just catch guys. He runs the ball in these Sean McVay type offenses where he always has this weird floor of at least, 1 touchdown a year. So I projected him this year. I think it's going to go off with Matt Stafford. I've got him projected for 3 touchdowns on the ground. Call me crazy. That's why he's my wide receiver 9. Sean McVay is the mastermind over here, obviously. So that's why I like Bobby Trees. That's why I've got him so high.
I've got him for 2, Pinto. I got him for 213 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground.
See, and I'm a little higher on him. I like Sean McVay, so
yeah. But I mean, that's 33.3 fantasy points on 31 rushes.
That's that real deal stuff, son.
That's what pushes him up to 18 for me. He's dynamic. I think I have him as the best rushing outside, maybe Tyreek, the best rushing. Nope, I even have him over Tyreek. He's my number 1 rushing receiver.
So going on to DJ Moore, this is the guy that, look, I guess I'm one of the higher ones on compared to you, Ryan, like you mentioned, but it's lower than Tom and Billy. So what's the real talk on DJ Moore, guys? Obviously, the Terrapin got huge draft capital out of the first round of 4.42 speed. Look at that dominator rank, 13th overall, wide receiver 25. Does he get an upgrade this year, right? With Sam Darnold? Is that an upgrade? Possibly.
It's hard to know.
You know how I feel about Gase and the Gase effect and the, it's like Chernobyl for me. So I got to keep Billy, Ryan. I don't know who wants it. Tom, you go first. You're the highest. Why are you so high on DJ Moore?
Personally, I'm a big fan of DJ Moore. I think he's a very good receiver, right? Looking at last year's stats, mind you, that's with Teddy Bridgewater for pretty much the whole season. Just shy of 1,200 yards on 66 catches, only 4 touchdowns. Last year wasn't a great scoring season for the Panthers, so I think that's more of a team issue than a DJ Moore issue. But aside from that, he has the ability to do it. You look at the stats: a 4.42 speed. He's 6 foot 210. He's got good size. He gets a pretty solid amount of the target share. Looking historically as well in 2019 with pretty much crap for quarterbacks, still almost 1,200 yards, and his rookie season just shy of 800 yards. So definitely has the skill set and the ability to get touches and pick up yards. And then looking at this depth chart, Sam Darnold, obviously the biggest addition. Obviously moving away from Adam Gase. I've heard nothing but great things out of training camp with him. It sounds like he's looking very good down there. Robbie Anderson, the big deep threat next to him. David Moore coming in from Seattle is another one. And then the big man, Terrace Marshall, somebody we were all pretty big on moving out of the draft. So a lot of options around him to keep some of the focus off of him from defenses. And then even at tight end, a guy we talked about a little bit, Tommy Tremble, there's options in Carolina and CMC, of course. Thank you, Josh. It's a big season that DJ Moore could really succeed and easily have 1,400 yards. Even at 20, I think I might be a little low on that. I think that's kind of my floor for DJ Moore this year.
Okay, I can kind of get with that. Billy, now I'm fading a little bit. So 23 falls just shy of our consensus. Tom a little higher, you a little lower, but you're still right there in that same wide receiver 2, space. What's your pitch on DJ Moore?
So I like DJ Moore as the player. I don't love DJ Moore as a player. I think he's a pretty good wide receiver. I don't think he's a great wide receiver. And, take into consideration, Robbie Anderson showed up last year with Matt Rule and really outperformed DJ Moore from a fantasy standpoint. Not a guy who gets in the end zone a lot. He did have the 1 year a couple years ago where he was way up there in the top 20 wide receivers, but he also had kind of an outlier year for receptions. This year kind of back down to earth. Catch percentage dropped pretty significantly, but one thing that does intrigue me a lot with him, we saw the deep shots to Robbie Anderson, a lot of fun down there. That's with Teddy Bridgewater and the gang. So I really do feel like Sam Darnold is a big step in the right direction for Carolina from the quarterback position, but 18.1 yards per reception for DJ Moore last year is pretty intriguing. If he could keep something like that going on and get that catch percentage back up, the targets are going to be there where he could have a monster season, and some of those deep shots turn into a few more touchdowns for a guy like DJ Moore, especially if you play in some leagues, like a couple of my home leagues. We get a 3-point bonus for a 40-yard touchdown. DJ Moore, one of those guys that you kind of eyeball a little bit more with that speed, that potential to hit that home run.
With CMC, like Joshua mentioned, opening up some of these underneath lanes and taking some of the pressure off of them, Sam Darnold could have the opportunity to air it out. But for me, like I alluded to earlier, the whole Adam Gase thing is it gets me. I won't speak about it too terribly much because I don't want to, you say it too many times and it's like Beetlejuice. So Ryan, 30 on him. What do you got? Ooh, Ryan's on
All
here.
right, you Ryan.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow, I can't believe that. Okay, so dang. So DJ Moore over the last 3 years has 10 total touchdowns in 46 games. That's not good. 2, 4, 4. AJB had 11 last year, more than his 3 years combined. Like, this guy's not scoring. Now, yes, he hasn't had the best quarterback play, but he's also not improving in his catch percentage. Now, yes, I think Darnold is an improvement, and he did show some bursts in that yards per reception last year, which was a good sign, and a sign, again, Billy, I agree, that could be potentially a good sign moving forward. But I haven't been impressed with him as of yet as far as a fantasy receiver goes. I mean, he's a solid player, but you're not going to get any – I have 0 shares of him on purpose. The second I acquire an orphan that has him, I move him. I just don't believe he is that special when it comes to fantasy. I think he's a solid receiver, but again, 10 touchdowns in 3 years, like even Julio's laughing at you, DJ. Like, get in the end zone, man. That's a problem. The consistency with that is a problem too. Like, we need some more touchdowns. Yes, Darnold is an upgrade, and maybe this is DJ Moore's big breakout year, but I just haven't seen it. Again, that 18.1, Billy, that intrigues me, but for me, DJ Moore is not the guy that I'm going to be acquiring in any leagues.
Real quick point on DJ Moore here. We talked about quarterback play and how Sam Darnold obviously an upgrade. I just want to point out how bad the quarterback play has been, right? Obviously, last year I talked up Teddy Bridgewater a little bit. Not a great quarterback by any means, but he plays efficiently. But that doesn't necessarily make for a great receiver in fantasy. So last year, 15 games, Teddy Bridgewater, 1 game with PJ Walker, your boy Chris. Not great, though. 2019, played 12 games with Kyle Allen, 2 with Cam Newton, and 2 with Will Grier. And in 2018, he played 14 games with Cam Newton with a bum shoulder, 1 with Taylor Heineke, who great for Washington at the end of last year, and then 1 with Kyle Allen. it's not good quarterback play for any of these seasons. And the Panthers offense has been trying to get off the ground, and they haven't for any of those years. I think, you're right. The 4 is a little low on DJ Moore. It is something where if you have the belief in him, it's great. That's where I'm at. But if you don't, it's tough to see where that jump's going to happen. But the ceiling just seems so high, knowing that if he has a decent quarterback, I mean, he has the ability, it seems at least, to have a monster season.
Okay. Tom didn't believe in the Gase effect. That's fine. But we're going to pick these next ones up just a little bit. These are 25 through 36 for us. Take a bigger look at these guys, right? Cooper Kupp, Lil Cooper Kupp, 25. Tyler Lockett at 26. Jamar Chase, we'll talk about at 27. Brandon Cooks in Houston, 28. Juju Smith-Schuster, 29. Tyler Boyd, we'll talk about him probably during the battle situation at 30. Now, 31 to 36, right? Michael Pittman Jr., Billy's guy. Cortland Sutton out of Denver, 33. Deontay Johnson, another Pitt receiver. Chase Claypool backing it up at 34. Brandon Ayuk at 35. And Jerry Jeudy, the best route runner, one of the best route runners claimed by Tom in the class at 36, who we will talk about. Any of these guys stick out to y'all?
Michael Pittman at 31.
Yeah,
You like that?
Cortland Sutton
That
at
could be way
32. I
higher.
think if you're getting Cortland Sutton at 32, obviously coming off the knee injury, Denver does anything even remotely close to what we think they could be. Cortland Sutton, incredible value in that kind of low wide receiver 3 range.
I think Tyler
Yeah,
Lockett
both
is
him-
super
him and
low.
Jeudy.
I think Tyler Lockett is super low at 26.
I don't care where Tyler Lockett is, I won't draft him.
Yeah, I get that, but man, I think 26 that's the one that I see.
Well, let's talk about the LSU Tiger, Jamar Chase. 6 foot, 201 pounds out of LSU, the 1.05 in last year's draft. Clocked by the coach at 4.139. A 21% target share, 23 total touchdowns. Where we got him at, I've got him pretty high at 21. Tom 28. Ryan low at 33. Billy at 24. College stat line 20 touchdowns, 1780 on the yardage. Jamar Chase, wide receiver, you possibly? We'll talk about him now. So Ryan, you've got him at 33. Let's start with you. The Penei Sewell thing. Does it still burn?
Idiots, stupid idiots. I have him I have him below Boyd and Higgins. I just think that nobody is getting slept on as bad as Tyler Boyd right now. It's a joke. He's been fantastic every year. T. Higgins showed his stuff last year. But when I'm looking, I actually have Jamar Chase getting a few more targets than Higgins, but a few less catches. And then with Boyd, I have him getting less targets and less catches. Now, here's the thing. Jamar Chase, we saw what he could do with Burrow, getting Burrow. He's got about as much experience with Burrow as the other two receivers do. So that's going to be a factor. He's going to be integrated in faster. But this is a new offense. So Chase is a special talent. I think we all can agree on that, and he's great. But there are too many good receivers. That's the best trio in the league. Maybe Dallas, actually. Dallas has a fair argument. But I'm just looking at why you didn't need a receiver. And drafting Chase, he is going to be so hampered by the studs that are in that receiving room with him. Stop sleeping on Tyler Boyd. It's getting on my nerves. He's the wide receiver 1 for me on that team. How much more does that guy have to do?
Stop it with the Tyler Boyd business. He's not even in the pictures about the Go Tigers, Ryan.
I know. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. The disrespect.
Ryan, I just got to show this one time. I got to bring this into season 2. Okay, we'll keep it moving though. Tom, you've got Jamar Chase at 28, right there in line with our consensus. What's your analysis on the LSU Tiger?
Yeah, I mean, also still the worst draft pick in this class. Not that he's a bad receiver, but again, they should take an offensive line. I'm right there with Ryan on Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. I think they're both very good, and I even think Alden Tate's not bad as a wide receiver 3. Yeah. So now he's not a wide receiver 4. Great, even better. But here's the thing. All the stats that these guys put up, anybody on that roster pretty much, is going to have to be put up in the first probably 8 weeks or so until Joe Burrow gets hurt again because they have no offensive line to protect him. And even when he is out there, he's going to be running for his life, right? It's not a great, place to be when your quarterback doesn't have any time. We saw that last year in Philadelphia. Receivers struggle from it because you can't develop any routes. Again, these guys are all fantastic running after the catch, but you can only do so much. So I think that, being in the low 20s, kind of a low end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3, probably pretty realistic for them. But definitely some pretty significant concerns, the Bengals being the Bengals.
The Bengals will do Bengal things. So, Billy, 24 on Jamar Chase. Back with his homeboy.
I like Jamar Chase. I really love Joe Burrow in this offense. I've been scooping up Joe Burrow all over the place in Dynasty. Don't care about the knee injury. Staying true to the true Cincinnati Bengal fashion, getting those 2 big dog wide receivers, bringing in Jamar Chase to replace the franchise legend and AJ Green. But AJ Green last year had over 100 targets, like 104, only caught 47 of those, so 45% catch rate. Pretty pathetic. If Jamar Chase gets that ball, just that volume alone, I expect him to be in the 65% range probably. So he's going to catch 65, 70 balls. I think his year this year will be very similar to what T. Higgins did last year. T. Higgins was wide receiver 28 in PPR, and he did that without Joe Burrow, so just a little bit higher with Burrow finishing out that season. This is an offense that averaged 40 pass attempts a game. I say that all the time with Joe Burrow under center, which is just an incredible amount of volume for all these guys. So I think they're all valuable and viable fantasy options. I just feel like I'd rather have the T. Higgins that I've already seen and really liked what he did last year, had him in all kinds of places, so kind of have that connection to him before I'm going to take that rookie, in redraft. So give me T. Higgins for now over Jamar Chase. I do think Jamar Chase would be a very valuable a high-end wide receiver 3 rather. However, I think T. Higgins will have the better year overall, but nonetheless, give me all the Bengals in fantasy in all formats this year.
Ooh, I'm with it with the Joe Mixon. Yep, got me. I'm with it with the Joe Mixon stuff, though. Man, the one little thing little nugget I've got on this is, you got Zach Taylor, you got Joe Burrow, you got T. Higgins, you got Thad Moss now, all the LSU Tigers coming in. So Jamar Chase, for me, will have a huge year. That's why I've got him at 21. Joe Burrow and him have a huge connection. So I just think it's going to have big things, So moving on to the best route runner from Tom, if I can get it going. There we go. Jerry Jeudy. Let's look at Jerry Jeudy a little bit up close, right? Alabama wide receiver. We're talking about a lot of these SEC guys, right? His 2020 season finishes the wide receiver 45. Only 3 touchdowns, 157.6 fantasy points. Right now, consensus number 36. For me, I'm at 38. Tom, high 31. Ryan at 43. Billy at 34. Ryan, we'll start with you. Being the lowest on Jerry Jeudy. Not a fan of the Glock.
I do think that has something to do with it, guys. There is a lot of unknowns. I have him at 129 targets, actually. And I think the addition of Cortland Sutton is going to be a big thing for Jeudy's growth and development. I'm just more so expecting to see the fruits of that in year 3 than year 2. I think Sutton is going to be the better receiver to have. He had a really suboptimal catch rate last year, and that is a problem for me because he isn't this super special deep threat. He's just a supreme route runner. He's very good at what he does, but he wasn't catching the ball last year. And we should see improvement with that in year 2. But he's also, I don't see him being a super big touchdown guy. That also seems to go right to Sutton in his wheelhouse. So I do want to like Glock, and I do like Jeudy. I kind of don't like that he's as low as he is. But the problem, again, is what is that offense going to look like this year? How many touchdown opportunities is Jeudy going to get? And can he catch better than 40-something percent catch rate? What was it? 46% catch rate, guys. That's really not good. And I can't get over that part. So I do expect it to be better. And again, I know I will have some exposure to Jeudy because I do think he has a pretty nice upside if they have the quarterback play necessary to give it to him.
Okay. Billy?
Yeah, kind of the same boat. Another thing with that really low catch percentage, Ryan, is he had a lot of drops last year, which is really kind of concerning because that wasn't an issue with this guy coming out of Alabama. So Kind of just some concerning things, and also quarterback play. Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater aren't exactly guys to get you super excited. And then you bring back Cortland Sutton, and I feel like it kind of puts Jerry Jeudy, not talent-wise, but just, kind of on earth-wise, in a really funky spot with Cortland Sutton being the bona fide possession receiver. They already have Noah Fant, the tight end guy. Judy's not really a slot guy. He's on the opposite side, but he's a renowned route runner. But that job kind of is already taken over by Cortland Sutton. So I do feel like it's kind of a funny situation for Jeudy, a big yards per catch guy, averaging 16.5 yards per catch, 856 yards on only 52 catches. Just shows that if he cleans up some of the drops, gets some better balls, obviously some of that catch percentage has to do with some pretty poor quarterback play as well. Jerry Jeudy's potential is off the map. However, that all-important quarterback position really kind of makes me temper my expectations for Jerry Jeudy fantasy-wise. Incredible talent, wide receiver-wise.
And Tom, high on him, 31. What's your take on Jerry Jeudy?
Yeah, I mean, you guys know I think he's the best route runner out of this class. Obviously, the drops are a big issue. Nobody's going to deny that. But to me, I look at it and I look at the quarterback play last season. So 13 games with Drew Lock. I'm a big fan. Obviously, last year, not his ideal season, though. One game with Jeff Driscoll, one game with Brett Ripien, and one game that technically was started at quarterback by Philip Lindsay because they lined up in the Wildcat for the first 4 plays. But Kendall Hinton, wide receiver, was really the quarterback for that game. So obviously not an ideal year for him with the quarterback situation. Cortland Sutton, the number 1 receiver out. So you have your rookie receiver lining up as your number 1. And then beyond him, guys like KJ Hamler, Tim Patrick, who played well, even Seth Williams, also dealt with injuries. It was a season that was marred by guys not being on the field for the Broncos. Jerry Jeudy not being withheld from that. I think that, having these guys back onto the field definitely going to help out for him, learning a bit more from Sutton. And I think that, Drew Lock, you saw him practicing with Peyton Manning going into this offseason. He's really been learning a lot from everything that's coming out in training camp. And I mean, hey, hopefully if that quarterback play is better, which I'm hoping hoping the quarterback play is, Jerry Jeudy 31 is not an unreasonable thing. Could even go higher depending on how explosive this offense is, which again, we thought would be last year, and those injuries kept it from doing that.
My bad, Tom. I was in the group chat over here, and I didn't realize it was just your face up there. I thought we were all up there for a second. That's my bad. I'm sorry about that. But guys, we're rounding it out right now. Obviously, we're hitting this time that we would like to do around 100 minutes. We're gonna call it tonight, right? We'll get our top 75 out after the show. Give me a little bit. I'm going to talk about something with Derek in a little bit. But guys, let's talk about what we work on right behind the scenes. What kind of drives our show? It kind of drives us. What was a passion project of ours when we first started. So Billy Ryan, let's get the screen like this. I think that's how it goes. Yeah, there we go. Uh-oh. I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what's going on. Oh, that's crazy. All right, there we go. We're good. St. Jude, 2nd annual St. Jude Bowl tournament. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, awesome event. Year 2 throwing it together. Just kind of manifested from a crazy idea. Ryan got us linked into St. Jude as an organization to represent our charity donation that we put together with this. So your entry fee, half of it goes to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. The other half going to our champion. So last year we paid out $1,200. Just a crazy, awesome event. Come join us for this mega league, and stick around and keep your eyes peeled for when we start taking registrations for the other formats that Ryan's cooking up for you.
Yeah, we will have best ball. We will have a vampire, an auction league, guillotine league series. It's going to be really fun. I'm really excited about it. There's so much. If you haven't played some of these formats, guys, they're amazing. I did my first guillotine last year. It blew my mind. One of the coolest formats you can do. So competitive. Vampire, I don't have a ton of experience with, but I mean, I have done it and it is fun. I'm looking forward to the vampire leagues. It's just fantasy football is so fun when you can do something so great and donate to St. Jude, who do so much good work for kids with cancer. It's unbelievable. So we're so excited to be partnered with them again, and excited to do what was easily my favorite league last year. Had an absolute blast getting to know everybody that did it, and looking forward to doing that again this year. We are starting divisions. If you're on the St. Jude channel chat, which you get once you pay your registration, you get an invite to the St. Jude channel chat. And I have posted pictures of what the divisions are forming into based off of the confirmed payments so far. So we got a couple more payments in just today. We're just really excited to get everybody in, get as many people as we can, get as much money to St. Jude as we can, and to our winner. Yes, guillotine is a good submission. No, I call it guillotine. I'm from Texas. I call it a guillotine because I can do what I want.
Pinto,
Simple,
we caught
right?
you on that. Don't worry.
Yep,
Was
I
that
don't know
number
what you
4 or
guys are
5?
talking about.
that was the
That's
fourth.
4?
That's
I said
5.
3 or 4
I
at the end
think
of the show.
It's 5.
Oh, it was 5.
Oh, okay, that's 5.
Tom, St. Jude Bowl stuff. Well, we obviously the divisions are not full yet. How can people reach us, and how can they get into this?
Well, as always, obviously you can message any of us on Twitter, myself, Ryan, Chris, or Billy. We're happy to get you lined up with it. Otherwise, if you go on Twitter at FantasyFR Live, the Fantasy First Rounders Live, we can always get you in. Just shoot us a message, DM us, whatever works best for you, or on Facebook, Fantasy First Rounders Live. Any of those options, we'll get you in, get you signed up, $20 buy-in. And Ryan and Billy are the experts on this. This is their baby. They've been doing a great job of building it, making it an amazing thing for year 2. And I'm just stoked for all these different leagues that we have. That Vampire League is going to be a fantastic time. We've talked about it a few times here. I'm excited for the hot takes to be my only go-to to win a league, rather than my secret weapon, if you will.
Fair enough. I mean, Ryan and Billy have been working on this for a long, long time, guys. Obviously, this is our second year. It takes a lot of legwork prior to just going and starting leagues, right? Obviously, hats off to these guys. Obviously, we're the Fantasy First Rounders. You can find us here every Wednesday at the same time, same place, not going anywhere. Consistency, stats, win, ships. And you know what? We're going to get better every week. I feel like we got better this week than we did last week. One thing I forgot to add before we leave, obviously you can follow us. There's our @. We're the Fantasy First Rounders. Guys, stats, win, ships.